Imagine this for a moment. What if everything you thought you understood about love, desire, and attraction was never the full truth? What if the ideas you grew up believing, be nice, be loyal, be open, were only half of the story? And what if the real forces that shape desire are far older, deeper, and far more strategic than anyone ever told you? For centuries, people have tried to understand why some men struggle in relationships while others succeed with almost no effort. And the truth is this: it's not about looks, status, or being perfect. Many men fail not because they are weak or foolish, but because they were taught a version of romance that simply does not match how desire actually works. In real life, I learned this the hard way. For a long time, I believed that if you were a good man, kind, respectful, always available, love would naturally come to you. I believed that if you gave your best, the other person would eventually see your value. But life doesn't always work like that. I once spent months trying to impress someone who barely noticed me. I tried everything: support, attention, gifts, patience. None of it mattered. She saw all of it, but she didn't feel anything. But the moment I finally walked away, something changed. Suddenly, my absence mattered more than my presence ever did. And that's when it hit me. Desire doesn't always respond to goodness. It responds to emotion, contrast, tension, and mystery, things I never understood before. Many thinkers throughout history noticed similar patterns. They observed how people often say one thing but respond to something completely different. A person might say they want stability but feel drawn to excitement. They might say they want kindness but feel attracted to confidence and independence. These contradictions aren't lies, they're layers. And if you don't understand the layers, you end up confused and hurt. Look around you. How many times have you seen someone complain about never finding the right person, yet they keep choosing the same type over and over? How many times have you seen someone say they want peace, but chase someone who creates chaos? It's not random, it's a pattern. Desire doesn't follow logic, it follows emotion, and emotion follows ancient instincts that people themselves don't completely understand. Here's the real problem. You were taught to behave according to ideal rules. Always be available, always be kind, always show your feelings. But attraction doesn't work like a moral equation, it works like a psychological reaction. When you try too hard, when you give too much too soon, when you make someone the center of your world, you remove the very tension that makes desire grow. The human mind doesn't crave what feels guaranteed. It craves what feels meaningful, earned, or exciting. This doesn't mean you should play games or be disrespectful. It means you must understand a simple truth. Being good is valuable, but being emotionally centered, confident, and self-guided is magnetic. People don't want someone who abandons himself for affection. They want someone who respects himself first. Someone who has purpose, boundaries, and a life that doesn't depend on validation. And once you start seeing these patterns, everything begins to make sense. Attraction isn't random, it's not personal. It responds to signals: availability, confidence, unpredictability, independence. And most men are never taught how these signals work. They focus on effort instead of presence. They focus on giving instead of becoming. And that's why they lose. If this feels familiar, stay with me, because this is only the beginning. Now that you've seen the first layer, it's time to go deeper. Because the real confusion many men face doesn't come from what women say, it comes from the difference between words and instinct. People speak with their minds, but desire speaks with the body. And sometimes these two parts want different things. This isn't manipulation, it's not deception, it's simply how human psychology works. Think about this. How many times have you heard someone say they want a good person who is stable, honest, and understanding? Almost everyone says this. And they do mean it. But then you watch them fall for someone who is mysterious, confident, unpredictable, and slightly out of reach. Someone who doesn't always respond immediately. Someone who has a life that doesn't revolve around them. This looks contradictory, but it isn't. The mind seeks stability, but the heart seeks emotion. Stability builds a home, but tension sparks desire. And these two forces often move in different directions. When you give someone all your attention instantly, when you constantly prove yourself, when you show that you are always available, you remove the emotional tension that creates excitement. You think you are showing loyalty, but they feel no spark. You think you are being kind, but they feel no challenge. You think you are being good, but they feel no story. And without a story, desire fades. Humans don't fall for what is simply good. They fall for what makes them feel alive, curious, and emotionally engaged. Many men confuse effort with value. They believe the more they give, the more the other person will care. But the truth is, value doesn't come from giving everything. Value comes from being someone with purpose, someone who doesn't chase affection, but attracts it naturally through identity, not performance. Someone who doesn't collapse under emotional pressure. Someone who isn't afraid to walk away from situations that don't appreciate them. This leads to something important: emotional balance. People test each other without even realizing it. They might create small conflicts, pull away briefly, or behave unpredictably, all to see how you respond. Not because they are cruel, but because they want to understand your emotional strength. If you panic, beg, or lose control, it sends the signal that your stability is weak. But if you stay calm, composed, and respectful, without trying to over-explain or defend yourself, you show a level of emotional depth that is incredibly attractive. The truth is, attraction grows when both people feel that the other has a strong inner world. When someone feels you have options, purpose, and independence, they feel drawn in. But when they feel you depend on them for happiness, they feel pressure instead of desire. You don't have to act indifferent. You just have to be centered. You don't have to play games. You just have to avoid losing yourself. Because when someone senses that your life is meaningful even without them, they naturally want to be part of it. This is why confidence is so powerful. Not loud confidence, not arrogance, quiet confidence. The kind that comes from knowing your worth, knowing your path, and not letting every small reaction change who you are. People are attracted to those who know themselves, those who don't chase approval, those who don't get emotionally shaken by every shift in attention. This is not coldness, this is strength. And once you understand this balance, things that seemed confusing become clear. You begin to see why people say one thing but respond to another. You see why being too available backfires. You see why emotional pressure kills attraction. You see why calmness creates power. And most importantly, you see why you must build a strong life before you bring someone into it. If all of this feels new or uncomfortable, that's normal. Most men were never taught any of this. They learned to give everything instead of becoming someone worth giving to. But now you're starting to see the deeper patterns. And trust me, what comes next will make everything click even more. Now that the deeper layers of desire are becoming clearer, it's time to understand something even more subtle, something most men never notice until it's too late. Attraction doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades slowly when you become too predictable. Predictability feels safe, but it does not create excitement, it creates routine. And routine kills emotional tension. Think about the early stages of any connection. Everything feels exciting because nothing is guaranteed. Every message matters, every meeting feels special, every silence makes you wonder what comes next. But over time, many men make one simple mistake. They give up their individuality. They stop doing the things that made them interesting in the first place. They stop focusing on their goals, their hobbies, their mission. Instead, they center their entire life around the other person. And this shift, though well-intentioned, slowly removes the emotional spark. When someone feels you have abandoned your own life for them, they don't feel flattered, they feel pressure. They sense that your happiness depends on their attention and that responsibility is heavy. Humans don't desire what they feel responsible for. They desire what they admire. And admiration comes from strength, purpose, and self-respect, not from constant availability. Attraction is not just about emotion, it's about perception. People are naturally drawn to those who seem internally stable, someone who has a direction, someone who can walk alone, someone who doesn't fall apart when faced with uncertainty. This kind of presence sends a signal: I am whole on my own. And that signal is powerful because it removes fear and adds curiosity. People feel safe with someone who is emotionally grounded, but they feel desire for someone who is emotionally centered and slightly unpredictable. This brings us to an important truth. Scarcity creates value, not artificial scarcity, not pretending to be busy. Genuine scarcity, the kind that comes from a life filled with purpose. When you are truly focused on improving yourself, building your dreams and living fully, your time becomes naturally limited. And when your time is limited, it becomes valuable. When it becomes valuable, people treat it with respect. And respect feeds desire. This is why the strongest connections come from balance. Not chasing, not withdrawing, balance. Showing interest but not dependency. Giving attention but not your entire identity. Being open but not empty. The more balanced you are, the more attractive you become, because you are not trying to force anything. You are simply being someone whose presence has weight. People also respond strongly to emotional rhythm. No one wants constant intensity, and no one wants constant calmness. It's the movement between closeness and space that creates meaning. When you share moments of warmth, kindness, and presence, it builds connection. But when you also create moments of distance, independence, and silence, it builds desire. This natural flow, closeness, and space keeps the connection alive, not as a strategy, but as a reflection of your authentic life. And here's something most men never understand. Losing someone's interest is not always caused by a mistake. Sometimes it's caused by losing yourself, because when you stop being the person they were drawn to in the beginning, the attraction weakens. You don't need to change who you are. You need to return to who you were before insecurity took over. The confident version of you, the focused version, the version who wasn't controlled by fear or desperation. When you reconnect with that stronger version of yourself, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you stop worrying, you stop trying to control the outcome, and without even trying, you become more attractive because you are no longer acting from fear. Your energy changes, your presence becomes calm, and calmness is magnetic. People trust it, people desire it, people move toward it without even knowing why. Once you see these patterns, you begin to understand attraction is not a mystery. It's a response to strength, independence, purpose, and emotional clarity. When you build these qualities inside yourself, you don't have to fight for anyone's attention. Your presence becomes enough. And the next part will take this even deeper, showing you the hidden emotional cycles almost no one talks about. Now we reach a part of attraction that few people ever understand, a part that operates quietly beneath everyday behavior. You've probably noticed it before without having the words for it. The emotional cycle people go through when deciding whether to move closer or pull away. These shifts often confuse men because they don't follow logic. One day, someone is warm, engaged, and expressive. The next day, they seem distant or harder to read. Most men panic when this happens. They assume something is wrong. They begin fixing, explaining, apologizing, or chasing. But here's the truth. These emotional shifts aren't always signs of a problem. They are part of a psychological rhythm, and understanding this rhythm gives you clarity while others get lost in confusion. Every person, whether they realize it or not, goes through moments where they need emotional closeness and moments where they need space. This isn't intentional, it's instinctive. When someone feels close to you, their subconscious quickly tries to measure emotional safety. When you respond calmly, the bond strengthens. When you respond with fear or pressure, the connection weakens. This cycle of closeness and distance is natural, but most men misunderstand it. They see distance as rejection instead of reflection. They see silence as punishment instead of processing. And this misunderstanding leads to insecurity, which destroys attraction faster than anything else. Here's where emotional strength becomes crucial. When someone pulls away a little, they are not asking you to panic. They are watching how you handle uncertainty. Your reaction in these moments reveals more about you than any words you say. If you stay calm, patient, and grounded, you send a powerful signal. You are emotionally stable. You are not shaken. You don't collapse under pressure. But if you react with desperation, anger, or constant reassurance seeking, you send the opposite message. You depend on them for emotional stability. You need them more than they need you. And nothing kills desire faster than emotional dependence. This is why silence, when used correctly, is powerful. Not silent treatment, not punishment, just calm space. Space shows confidence, self-respect, and balance. It shows that you can hold your center, even when emotions shift around you. People don't desire those who cling tightly. They desire those who can stand alone without fear. Emotional independence is not coldness, it is strength, and strength is attractive. But let's go deeper. Why does distance sometimes increase desire? Because humans value what feels meaningful, not what feels guaranteed. When someone senses that your attention is always available no matter what they do, they unconsciously take it for granted. Not out of malice, but because the mind stops valuing what it never has to earn. But when they sense that your presence is not automatic, that it comes from choice, not desperation, they respect it, they appreciate it, they desire it. This is why emotional rhythm matters. Closeness builds connection, but space builds value. Another part of this emotional cycle is testing. People test each other without realizing it. They test your patience, your confidence, your emotional control. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they want to understand who you truly are under pressure. They want to know if your calmness is real or an act. They want to know if your confidence is genuine or fragile. These tests happen in small ways. A sudden shift in tone, a delayed reply, a sarcastic comment, a random mood change. Men who don't understand these patterns react emotionally and fail. Men who understand them stay steady and pass without effort. The key is this: don't take every shift personally. Not every silence is about you. Not every mood swing is a signal of rejection. Many times people are simply processing their own emotions, dealing with their own thoughts, or protecting their own vulnerability. If you remain calm, you create a safe emotional environment. If you become anxious, you create pressure. Pressure suffocates desire. Calmness strengthens it. And here's the final truth for this part. You don't maintain attraction by controlling the other person. You maintain it by controlling yourself, by mastering your reactions, by choosing composure over fear, by staying centered even when things feel uncertain, because in those moments when others panic, your calmness becomes unforgettable. In the next part, everything will come together: the purpose, the psychology, the emotional patterns, and you will see why becoming a centered, purposeful man changes not just relationships, but your entire life. There comes a moment in every man's life where he must face a simple truth. The world does not respond to who you wish you were. It responds to who you are. Not the version you imagine in your head, not the version you try to perform for others, but the version you become through discipline, purpose, and emotional clarity. Most men never reach this point because they are too busy chasing approval, trying to be liked, or seeking validation from people who don't even understand their own emotions. But when you stop chasing and start becoming, everything changes. A man becomes powerful, not when others choose him, but when he knows he can walk away from anything that disrespects his value. This isn't arrogance, it's emotional maturity. You are no longer begging for attention. You are no longer trying to force someone to love you. You are simply living in a way that naturally attracts the right people and filters out the wrong ones. Because when your life has direction, you stop depending on others to make you feel complete. Purpose is the foundation of masculine energy. When a man knows why he wakes up each morning, his presence becomes different. His words carry weight. His silence carries meaning. His actions align with his goals. And this balance creates an aura that people feel without you saying anything. You've probably seen men like this before. Calm, grounded, not easily shaken. They don't rush, they don't chase, they don't panic. They move with intention. That energy is attractive because it represents stability, and stability is rare. But purpose alone is not enough. You also need emotional strength. The ability to face rejection without losing yourself. The power to hold your center when someone pulls away. The confidence to say, I want you, but I don't need you to survive. This mindset is freedom, and when you reach it, you stop operating from fear. You stop trying to impress. You stop overthinking. Your energy becomes lighter, stronger, and more authentic. And people, especially emotionally intelligent women, feel this instantly. Here's something few men understand. Attraction cannot be forced, but it can be inspired. You inspire attraction by living in alignment, your actions, words, purpose, and emotions all moving in the same direction. When you say you're strong but act insecure, people sense the contradiction. When you act confident but collapse at the first sign of emotional tension, they see the inconsistency. But when your actions match your intentions, you become magnetic without trying. The emotional dynamics you learned in the previous parts, space, calmness, rhythm, matter, because they show your internal stability. Stability creates trust, trust creates desire. People feel safe around someone who is emotionally balanced. They open up more, they invest more, they value you more, not because you chased them, but because they sensed your strength. And here is the final truth. Love, connection, and respect come naturally to the man who no longer fears losing them. When you are no longer controlled by fear, you become the one who chooses, not the one who waits to be chosen. You become the man who can stay or walk away, but never lose himself. And that is the essence of emotional mastery. So as you finish this journey, remember this. You don't win in relationships by being perfect. You win by being centered, grounded, purposeful, a man with a quiet mind and a strong heart, a man whose value doesn't rise or fall with someone else's behavior, a man who knows his worth even in silence. Because in the end, attraction is not about looks, money, or smooth words. It is about energy, stability, presence. And once you master these things, you stop chasing anything, because everything that is meant for you naturally moves closer.